Children, we have learned in the previous classes also that how the entire world fought for universal adult franchise. And earlier in the developed countries like USA and UK, all the people or the citizens were not given the right to vote. It was given in phases. Earlier it was only given to the people who had money, then the educated people, and finally it was given to the women and the poor citizens of the country. Okay, and they all fought for the want of universal adult franchise. As I told you, what is the meaning of universal adult franchise? Universal means all adults is the age fixed by the country, and franchise means the right to vote. So in our country, who are adults? 18 and above. So everyone recognize that everyone must get this universal adult franchise irrespective of their caste, religion, language, economic status. Okay, so everyone should have the right to vote, only that he should be an adult. In our country, 18 and above are considered as adults. And you see, when we got our independence, this was one of the best features mentioned in the constitution, that everyone will be given the right to vote. That is, we'll adopt universal adult franchise. Okay, so but in spite of this want from all the countries all over the world, we still see certain countries not granting this universal adult franchise to all. So now let us look into some of the countries and understand our third feature of democracy. Children, as I told you, there are many examples where equal right to voting are denied, and you can see in Saudi Arabia till 2015, the women were not allowed to vote. Children, we also take the example Estonia, another country which doesn't give equal right to vote, and they have made certain changes in their citizenship rules also. And they said that people who belong to Russian minority are people who are less in number, they belong to Russia, they have very difficult to get the right to vote. In fact, they're not allowed to vote still. So you see, all adults are not getting the equal right to vote, even in a country as Estonia. Children, in another country, Fiji, the Fiji Islands, there also the voting system is something different. It is like people who belong to Fiji, the local people of Fiji, they are called as indigenous, who have been living in Fiji since inception. They have more value of their vote, and whereas that of the Indian Fiji. Okay, so if the value of the local indigenous Fiji is 1, then the value of the Indian Fiji is only half. So that's how they whenever they have the voting, that's how the votes are counted. If an Indian votes, his vote value will be half, whereas the indigenous Fiji's value of vote will be counted as 1. So still that means that they all have not got the equal right to vote. So you see, children, the three countries that we have discussed: Saudi Arabia, where women were not allowed to vote; Estonia, where Russian minorities had difficulty in the right to vote; in Fiji, the local Fiji vote had more value than that of the Indian Fiji. So they did not get political equalities. That means all did not get equal right to vote. Okay, there was no equality of voting. So with this we get our third feature of democracy. So children, we get our third feature of democracy, that in a democracy each adult citizen must have one vote, and each vote must have one value, and that is the principle of universal adult franchise. One person, one vote, one value. Okay, so you see, these countries did not give the equal rights to voting to all its citizens. Okay, and which are the countries we have discussed? Saudi Arabia, Estonia and Fiji. Okay, children, let us understand the fourth feature of democracy by taking the example of a country, Zimbabwe. Now, Zimbabwe got its independence in 1980, and since independence, Zimbabwe is ruled by a party called ZANU PF, okay, and it is ruled by a leader called Robert Mugabe. And since he's been ruling the country, he's very popular, but he uses unfair practices in elections. Elections are held regularly there, but it is always won by ZANU PF, and he becomes the leader of the country. Okay, children, as I told you, President Mugabe has been winning for so many years since independence in 1980, and he is using unfair means to rule the country and become its leader. Now, what has he done to the constitution? You know what is a constitution? It is a book in which the rules and regulations are written down for the leader and the people to follow. Now, what has President Mugabe done? He has amended, he has made changes in the constitution multiple times in order to increase his power as a president, and so that he does not have to listen to the people or have to work for the people. He will do what he wants. And let us look into some of the other illegal practices that he has adopted. Now, he would disrupt the meetings of the opposition parties, harass them, and even jail them if they raise their voices against the ZANU government. Okay. Now, if public protests and demonstrations were held against the government, they would be declared as illegal and they would be put behind bars. Even newspapers, if they wrote anything objectionable about the government, yes, the journalists were harassed and also put behind bars. Children, even the television, the radio were controlled by the government, and they would only say good things about the Mugabe government and their views and versions, but nothing against them. They would all be in praise and would say, yes, this party, ZANU PF, is the best party. Children, they even ignored some of the court judgments given by the judges. So there was no independent judiciary. Okay, even they forced and pressurized the judges to give judgment in the favor of the government. So actually, everything was controlled by President Mugabe. Okay, so nothing was left for the other people to do or object. So it was like ruled by a dictator. And finally, in 2017, he was defeated, and now we have a more democratic government in Zimbabwe. Children, taking the example of Zimbabwe, it is not necessary that if you are a popular ruler, then you are a democratic country. No, we must know the proper way of the democracy functions. Children, we must know in a democracy, if we need to have a proper democracy, we must know what happens before an election and what must take place after an election. Children, before an election, we must see that both the opposition and the ruling party have the discussions properly. Even the opposition gets able to put forward its viewpoint. People should also be able to freely express themselves, okay, and they have formed their own opinion. They can also form their own associations. They can also protest if they don't like something, so that everyone gets equal opportunities. Okay, and we must also see that whatever is being done, it's done free and fairly through a proper way where the judiciary takes control of it. So we must have an independent and well-trained judiciary to see that these things are followed before an election. Children, even after the elections, once the government is formed, the government cannot do whatever it wants. It must work in accordance with the constitution, must look into the rights of the minorities, and must see that the fundamental rights of citizens are not violated. They must, whatever they want to impose must not be done by a single person, but in consultation with various people, and then only the policies should be discussed and implemented. They should work like a team, okay, and be accountable to the people. Okay, so these are the things that is a must in a democracy. So with this we get our fourth feature of democracy. Children, with this we get the fourth feature of democracy, that is, a democratic government rules within limits set by the constitutional law and citizen right. Yes, once the government is chosen by the people, then it must rule in accordance with the rules and regulations written down in the constitution. It cannot violate the basic structure of the constitution, and it must protect the citizens' fundamental rights. It cannot violate those rights. So this is another feature of a democratic government. So children, we have learned the 4 major features of the democratic government. So let us revise all the 4 quickly with the examples. First one, decision making power must be with those elected by the people, and here I gave you the example of Pakistan. Now second was that must be based on free and fair elections, and here I gave you examples of which 2 countries, China and Mexico. And the third one, we say must be based on universal adult franchise, that means 1 person, 1 vote, 1 value. And I gave you examples of 3 countries, Saudi Arabia, Estonia and Fiji. And the fourth one, that the government rules within limits set by constitutional law and citizen rights. And I gave you example of Zimbabwe. So these are the 4 basic features of a democratic government. Okay.